What is up, Impact Heroes? Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Rick Ornelas. Thank you for spending some time with us today because we know time's a valuable resource and we're going to make it worth your while. I appreciate each and every one of you, not just for listening, but for who you are. I know you're sparking change to make the world a better place every day, and I am humbled and grateful for your efforts. It takes all of us doing our part to spread positive change, and that's what this show is all about. Motivating you with stories of struggle, courage, and hope to empower you to make a difference in your life and the lives of others.
Are you interested in having Rick speak at your event or business? Here is what others have to say.
Did not know his story, and it was so inspirational, and his presence on stage, his authenticity was just incredible.
I absolutely loved his performance. It made me feel some type of way.
If you're looking for a speaker for your next event, hire Rick. I promise you this, you will not be disappointed.
Visit rickornelas.com to book him today.
Welcome back, Impact Heroes. Today we have the pleasure of speaking to our latest iSpark Change social impact hero, medical missionary, well-known health expert, and the host of the Health Talks OC, founder of MDDAO, Dr. Trinh Dung. Dr. Trinh, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hey, thanks so much, Rick. That was too much of an introduction. It's setting me up for a fall, for a crash.
You know, it's funny you say that because I always try to get a little creative in my intros for everybody. And people, they always kind of think like, oh, wow, I really like that. Oh, you made me sound so good or and everything. And that's really what I shoot for. So I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the show. You know, I first became aware of your work through my sister Liz in California, because that's where you are in California. And I knew you were doing great work with your medical missions and lots of different things, but I know you do a lot of stuff. It's funny when you Google your name. I don't know how often you Google your name, but when you Google your name, a lot of stuff comes up, like so much stuff comes up that you're doing many different things. And it's all stuff that I would consider impactful and, you know, has an impact on humanity and society. So that's why I wanted to have you on the show, because it's very important. So
thank you. As long as the Google doesn't land on some FBI page with my name on it, I'm good. Right?
Yeah, I haven't seen that. So I think you're good. I think you're good for now. Now I didn't go. I only went a couple pages, so I didn't go into like third, fourth, fifth. You know, anything from back in college or that kind of stuff. But all right, so on the iSpark Change podcast, we are all about highlighting people that are doing great work. That's why you're here, and we see you as someone who is spreading positive change in the world because the actions that you do, the things that you do, have a positive impact on humanity. And that's someone that we call a social impact hero. Now, you may not see yourself as a hero, but I want you to know that we do. And that's really all that matters for this show. But every hero has an origin story, has the story of, where they started, how they got to doing the work that they're doing. And so tell us where does your story, where do you feel your story of, doing this kind of impactful work, where do you think that really started for you?
That's interesting. Where it would start. I would say it would start with my memory as a 5-year-old kid. And as a 5-year-old kid, it was 1975. And it was on April 29th, 1975. It was a day before the end of the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War ended on April 30th, 1975. And on April 29th, I remember being on the tarmac of the Saigon airport. And Saigon was the capital city of Vietnam at the time. And I remember it being outdoors. I wasn't inside the airport. I was on like the runway. with a whole bunch of other Vietnamese folks. It was a gray day. It was kind of drizzly. And all I heard around me was gunfire, and shooting, and loud noises, and people screaming and yelling, and it was simply because it was a day before the end of the war, and so they were already fighting on the streets, just shooting door to door, right? And so that was all we heard as a 5-year-old kid, and there was tons of refugees on the runway with myself. With me was my 3 siblings. I was 5 years old. My sister was 3. My other sister was 2. And my brother was 3 months old. And mom was with us as well. And amidst the noise of the chaos, the shooting, we saw these big black helicopters landing hundreds of feet in front of us, and these were American helicopters. As a matter of fact, they're called Chinook. I don't know if you remember what that is. The Chinook helicopters. They're like double rotor helicopters that carry troops. Very similar to the helicopters that were evacuating Afghanistan refugees when we were evacuating from Afghanistan last year. It was the same exact helicopter, these Chinook helicopters. And I would watch these loud helicopters, windy because of the rotors. We had no protection, super loud because we had no ear protection either. Land in front of us, the back of the helicopter would go down, and I would see tons of Vietnamese people run into the back of the helicopters and run inside the helicopters, and the helicopter would take off, and then the next helicopter would land. The back of the helicopter runs down, and a whole bunch of people run into the helicopter and take off. And then finally, there was a big black Chinook helicopter landed probably about 150 feet in front of us. Super windy. I thought I was going to be blown away from the helicopter rotors, right? And as a 5-year-old kid, super loud. The back went down, and we were told I was told to run to the helicopter. And so I grabbed my sister's hand. I was 5, she was 3, and mom had my other 2 brothers and sisters, and one in each hand, each arm, and we ran to the helicopter. Ran toward the back, and on the right side was a U.S. serviceman with his helmet on. I couldn't see his face. He had a pistol that he was holding, and then there was 2 rows of seats inside the helicopter. I ran inside, sat on the left side, and then buckled up. And it was the first time, even as a 5-year-old, believe it or not, it was the first time that I felt a sense of relief and kind of a sense of hope that we were leaving the war. Because a lot of my memory as a kid was memories of the Vietnam War. I remember sleeping underneath our bed rather than on top of our bed, because at night we would look outside the window and we would see flashes of light, and we knew there was a war going on, and we were always afraid that the roof would fall down, right? That some mortar would hit the roof and the house would collapse. So we spent a lot of time sleeping underneath our beds. We would often huddle in a bedroom at night if we hear the Viet Cong, which is the guerrillas, the South Vietnamese guerrillas, patrolling outside at night. During the day, everyone looks the same. You're a farmer, you're a worker, and nobody knows who's good and who's bad, whose side was who, right? But at night, the Viet Cong, which is sympathizers for the communists, at night they would take up their guns and their arms, and they would fight at night and go patrolling. So every time we hear them walking around our house outside, we would all huddle inside a room and just kind of hoping they don't come inside the house, right? So those are kind of my memories. I remember running into bomb shelters when the sirens would go off during the day. So with those kind of memory of my childhood, it was why when I sat down inside that helicopter and buckled up, I felt a sense of relief. I knew we were going somewhere. I didn't know where we're going. So the back of the helicopter went closed, and I looked outside the window as the helicopter was taking off, and I saw the city of Saigon. And as the helicopter got higher, I saw the jungles of Saigon, super green, right? Looking down at the jungle. The helicopter went over the ocean, and I had no clue where we're going. It was just a blue ocean. And this helicopter landed on an aircraft carrier called the USS Midway, which is a carrier that's currently decommissioned and docked down in San Diego. So yeah, on April 29th, 1975, I was on the Midway along with many other Vietnamese refugees, just escaping the war. And that route eventually took us into a landing craft. We left Midway. We were squashed up in a little landing craft where a bunch of us refugees just hopping up and down this landing craft, kind of like the World War II Private Ryan landing crafts. And that landing craft met up in the middle of the ocean with a transport ship. And I remember jumping from the landing craft and grabbing on to the ropes of the transport ship on the side of the ship, and then climbing up, as a 5-year-old kid. And all the refugees were jumping off, grabbing onto the ropes and climbing up the side of the ship. And they were tossing babies from the landing craft to people catching babies on the other side. And so we got on the transport ship. We slept on top of the transport ship, just on deck, for at least a few days. Best meal of the day was hot, like everyone got a plastic Ziploc bag. Each family got a plastic Ziploc bag that had hot rice and hot tuna. It's the best meal of the day that I remember. So we were on this transport ship for a good number of days, and eventually the transport ship dropped us off at the island of Guam. And we lived on the island of Guam in these, along with the military, the Marines, and the soldiers that were there, the U.S. Soldiers. I remember there was an Air Force base because I recall watching the jets take off all the time from the runway. We weren't allowed to enter the United States unless we had a sponsor. And so we were like, we're never going to leave the island. We don't know anyone, right, in the United States to sponsor us. And we stayed on Guam for a few months. And then one day we were told we had a sponsor. And we were like, wow, who would sponsor us? It's kind of weird. And it turned out to be the church. There was a church here in California who sponsored our family to the United States. And it was actually my first introduction to God. I was born Buddhist all my life and never knew anything about God or Jesus or Christianity. But it's interesting that we were sponsored by the church. And because of that, we hopped onto an airplane and flew from Guam and landed in Orange County, California. Went from there to a Marine base in Camp Pendleton, Oceanside. Lived inside these humongous tents. It was called Tent City. So the Marine base, Camp Pendleton, was converted to a refugee camp back in '75. And so we lived inside the tents for a long time. Dad met up with us at Camp Pendleton. He escaped on his own, actually. I remember sleeping on the cots, watching the rattlesnakes go by and stuff like that. And eventually, we stayed there for a few months, and then we left Tent City to Long Beach. Lived in a abandoned building called a YWCA. It was shuttered up. It was just our family and a Filipino family there. Mom stayed home, took care of the four kids, four of us, and dad got a job pumping gas at the gas station. I was 5 years old, and because I was five, I started kindergarten, and that was our start. So maybe that was a long-winded answer to your question of how this started, but I think from that memory and from that experience, I am just very grateful. I'm just very
Yeah.
grateful for the opportunities and just giving back now with the things we do as a result of that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I mean, your story, Dr. Trin, is just incredible. And one thing that
Yeah.
stands out to me is the vivid detail that you remember everything at the age of
Yes.
5. And, I'm guessing you're a few years past 5 at this point, and I mean, the anniversary just passed just a
Yes,
few days ago,
just
right?
that.
The anniversary just
Absolutely.
passed. Is that something that you think about? Like, do you think about it when that day comes every year?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When that day come, we have this special appreciation that we're here, that we are the lucky ones to be here. There are many who have tried to escape unsuccessfully. There are many boat people that try to leave on boat, and 50% make it, the other 50% die in the ocean. And so we are one of the lucky families that have the privilege to be here in the States, and just very grateful.
Yeah, well, I mean, I knew before I asked that, I knew what the answer to that question would be, but I think it's
Yeah.
important for people to realize is that all of us, we have a beginning, and where you come from,
Yes.
and what got you to this point. When you approach it with a heart of gratitude and realize that there's others that are less fortunate, that
Yes.
is a great place to be mentally and spiritually and emotionally, for your well-being, and for how you
Yeah.
show up to others and how you're able to help others. And I would say that's
Absolutely.
probably lent well into the heart of service that you have, which is one thing that attracted me to you, is that heart of service, because that's something that I've realized is a big part of my purpose over the years, is service for
Right.
others. And so, in being a social impact hero, so even if you even if you don't view yourself, I mean, as I said, we do, because of the work. So I want to dive a little more into the work that you do, because I want people to learn more about that, because it is important. When we talk about a social impact hero, the word hero is actually an acronym, and the first letter, the H, means a hero honors their purpose, and their purpose
Mm.
is what defines them, how they show up for the world. It's the foundation of everything that they do. So I know you honor, the grateful life that you have of being one of the fortunate ones to make it. Tell us more. Well, first off, what do you consider, kind of your purpose in life? And then tell us a little more about some of the work that you've done over the years, and what you're doing now.
Yeah. Well, it's I think, even as a kid looking back, with the history that I had as a war refugee, the question always have come back to me, that now that our family has been given a second chance, right?
Mhm.
Uh, how are we going to make that significant? And how do we make uh, this one life that we each have, right, significant? How do we leave this world a little bit better than when we came into it. And so it's always a strive for me, and perhaps it's probably due to our experience as refugees. It's always a strive to be to make sure that you live a life where you're impactful and that you have significance. And that doesn't necessarily have to mean doing, going around the world to do things, but significance could start in your family. It could start with your neighbors. Um, could start with your interaction with your children, your spouse, and your coworkers, and so that's what's important to me. And I have a higher view that this world doesn't end when this world ends for us.
Yeah.
I believe in a creator that have created us individually with purpose, and I strive to to live that life out, to fulfill that purpose, whatever that purpose is. And we don't obviously always see the entire picture, but to take each step ahead of us, right, a step at a time, with the intent of living a life with purpose, uh, is and significance is my goal. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you do a great job. So tell me, because I know a lot of it starts with you being a physician, and I know for years you've done the medical missionary work. What got you interested in medicine in the first place?
Ooh, great question. Um, a combination of a curiosity with science, a combination of being a skeptic in general. um, maybe, and the coolest thing was that during high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do as a high school student, but I went to school, Santa Ana Valley High in Orange County. It's probably one of the lowest at the time academically achieving school in Orange County, right? Well, I was in a minority area, and a lot of us, dropped out of school to go to work and things of that sort. Um, and so, because we're at a school that was not doing well academically, there was a program that was set up. And it was a program where students who were interested could volunteer to get matched up with a mentor. And I was like, this is interesting. Sign me up. My mentor was a physician,
Ah,
and his name is Dr. Rex Ailing. He's still around now, retired. At the time, he was the director, the medical director for the Orange County Public Health Department. I think that had a big impact on just the decision I made with my career, being matched up with a mentor where we met quarterly. He would take me to his meetings actually when he met with other docs and things of that sort. And because of that, I ended up volunteering at the Orange County Public Health Department and volunteering at the hospital. And that was kind of a spark through mentorship. And and it's also one of the reasons why I believe that we all should have a mentor, no matter who we are and where we're at in stage of our life, right?
oh yeah, I
Uh,
agree 100%.
guidance. Yeah, someone who can chat, we can just bounce ideas off, and we can seek guidance from and things of that sort. But I think that was the initial spark, and then I went to college in UC Irvine and all that. But that combination of mentorship with intellectual curiosity and just a desire to give back in some tangible way, um, was all factors that led me to medicine today. Yeah.
Gotcha. And I know you've worn many hats in your medical career. I know you've worn various hats, and you're going back to that Google search and worked and partnered with different entities and done different things. Share with us, I guess, your first mission trip or your first missionary work? What was that like? Where was that? And share a little bit about that experience.
Hurricane Katrina. Remember that?
So it's in the U.S.
Yeah, U.S. right here. That was back in 2000. What was that?
2005,
2004, 2005. Yeah, I was a practicing physician. Hurricane Katrina hit, watching the news and the devastation. And so I made a decision to travel there to see if we can provide free medical care. Recruited a number of folks from our medical group to come along. We had nurses and nurse practitioners come. We flew out to Biloxi, Mississippi, and just kind of did pop-up clinics in the middle of nowhere and brought medications along, things of that sort. Very impactful. We didn't stay long. We spent maybe a few days, flew back, and then decided to fly out the second time with 40 boxes of donations from my medical group.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Of medical supplies this time. And so the entire medical group was behind us this time. And so we flew out a second time, did more work out there in Hurricane Katrina area, mainly Biloxi, Mississippi, partnered with some local organizations, with some churches, and was able to provide medical care inside of churches, inside of like little delis and locations that were non-medical, basically, and was able to distribute a lot of meds during that time, and just watching the devastation that occurred actually out there, it was pretty crazy. So that was my first venture out, and then after that we went to Juarez, Mexico, and did a few clinics out there with the Talahumara Indians of Mexico. And these are Indian tribes that were looked down by the Mexican government, and did several trips out to Juarez, Mexico. And then after that, we started to go international. We're in Vietnam, and we're in Haiti, we're in Peru. We formed Tongue Out, which is a 501c3 organization I started a number of years ago. And with that, we are a platform to allow volunteers to hop on board with us and come do some good work with us. Yeah, that's how it started. And by the way, we were out in Houston, Texas for Hurricane Harvey.
Yeah, I saw that. I read that.
Yeah, that was a few years ago, 2017. So put together a team of over 40 doctors, nurses, a whole bunch of students from high school and college, and the Boy Scouts were with us. And so we did some work out there as well.
That's awesome. Harvey was a mess. We went down with a church group, and we did some clean outs in houses, and it was, there was just so much devastation, the flooding and just the damage was crazy. And obviously for Katrina too, but how many, do you have any idea on the total of mission trips that you've done, or the total people that have been involved in these mission trips?
Well, pre-pandemic, prior to the pandemic, we were probably out of the country about 5 times a year.
Oh, wow. That's quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was pretty frequent. Haiti was like twice a year, Vietnam once a year, sometimes twice a year, Peru yearly, Oaxaca, Mexico. We would do that as well. During the pandemic, the last few years, we were doing activities locally throughout Orange County, since we were all shut down. Nobody flew anywhere. And so we were, Tongue Out was just buying and purchasing PPE and masks and hand lotions and all that, and just distributing it to seniors who are stuck at home, and distributing it to nursing homes and hospitals and medical clinics. It's the stuff we did in the last 2 years. This July, we're heading back to Vietnam.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that things are opening up again.
So tell me, What was that when you did that first mission trip to Vietnam? Was that the first time you had been back to Vietnam since you left when you were 5, or had you been back?
Ooh. Yeah, so the first time I came back to Vietnam was 2010. That wasn't that long ago. That was 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that was the first time I came back since
35 years, or yeah,
1975.
35 years later.
Crazy. It wasn't a mission trip. It was a trip to visit family.
Mm-hmm.
We still had family in Vietnam. So we took our family, we took my dad and things of that sort. So it was our first time back, and wow, it was quite something. And my Vietnamese isn't that great, man. My Vietnamese is like 5-year-old Vietnamese. So it was a struggle, but that was my first time back. But 3 years after that, I came back to do medical work, and then every year since that, we
Oh,
have
nice.
been
So it's
back
like you're
to
the
Vietnam.
hero returning. You're the hero returning to do all the medical missionary work. That's fantastic. What do you think's been the biggest challenge? You know, one thing we talk about as a hero is that a hero's journey is not always just that upward, easy trajectory. There's going to be pitfalls, and there's going to be a lot of this. What do you think has been the biggest challenge on your hero's journey? You know, over the years, whether it be with the medical missionary work, or what do you think's been the biggest challenge you've had to overcome?
Yeah, great question. Well, the biggest challenge is if you're doing medical work, uh, the challenge of logistics, the challenge of planning, the challenge of finding volunteers sometime, and um, and so those are all challenges. Obviously, when you're there, you do your work, and it's pretty rewarding. We Half of our team are usually students, high
Mm-hmm.
school, college students, and the challenge of just for me as a physician leaving a full-time medical practice to be out of the country 4 or 5 times a year,
Yeah.
and that's a challenge on the practice, on patients who have been waiting for me to come back and things of that sort. So a lot
Mm-hmm.
of it's logistics. Of course, taking a financial hit when you're not working and things of that sort are challenges as well. But
Yeah.
but the reward far outweighs any of the challenges. So,
Oh, yeah. I would say, I would imagine so. Imagine so. Just the
right.
few things that I've done that yeah, it's you can't put a price on the reward of going
Absolutely.
out and seeing a face. So that's a perfect segue into one question that I always ask people on the podcast, guests like yourself. Um, Part of iSpark change is realizing that every individual, the reason it starts with the letter I is realizing that all of us can spark change. We all can impact others. You said it earlier when you talked about starting at home, starting with your family, and having impact that way in essentially making the world a better place. And
Mhm.
throughout life, throughout that journey, there's going to be what we call spark moments. And these moments are those initial, like when you met your mentor, for example. Those are those initial sparks that lead to something that have a ripple effect that's going to go far beyond that initial act. Okay.
Right.
So in your journey, share a story of a spark moment, not that someone had a spark for you, because we've already talked about that with your mentor, but where your actions had a spark on someone else, and you've seen that ripple effect since then, whether you've seen it over the long term or just a very short time, but where you've seen that, hey, you did something and that had a positive impact on someone.
Sure. Well, I think of Vietnam, and this is really interesting. In Vietnam, communist country, right? So highly regulated by the government. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to talk bad against the government, right? Even if you're on social media in Vietnam, if you talk down on your government, your account gets shut down.
Oh,
Right? Your
wow.
Facebook account gets shut down. That's how highly regulated it is. So when we go to Vietnam, what's really interesting is that the Vietnam government and the church are not friends. right?
Hmm.
The communism and the church, they're not friends. There's a lot of distrust uh, between the church and the government. So they just don't trust each other. Government persecutes the church goes underground, right? And people do
Hmm.
stuff that's not authorized and things of that sort. But to do work in Vietnam, we need to get government permission. We need to get authorization to go do our medical clinics. We need permission to go visit the leprosy centers that we go to. We need permission to do the eye surgeries for the blind that we do, or to visit the orphanages. So these are on our agenda this coming July, right?
Hmm.
Doing eye surgeries for the blind, leprosy work, pop-up clinics and all that. And every time we need permission. And what's interesting is that the church in Vietnam is often our local partner. So they send volunteers, and they often help set up, the local activities that we do. It's the local church. And at the same time, we're getting permission from the government. So here we are, we're inside a tongue out medical clinic, right? Not really a medical clinic because it's a pop-up, clinic inside of a building, right?
Hmm.
And we're doing our work, and we're seeing patients, and we're providing care and things of that sort. And we have government people there, just kind of watching us and making sure things are going well. And then we have church people there at the same time volunteering and helping out as well. And we always recruit both the government folks and the church folks to actually help us in the process of running the medical clinic, right? So they're bringing supplies, or they're walking patients from station to station, or they're helping organize and the lines of patients and things of that sort. And so we have church people working, we have government people working, we have tongue out docs and nurses working, and the students are there working. So we're all kind of intermingled for a good number of hours just working. When the clinic is done, when we've seen our last patient, or we ran out of our meds, right, things of that sort, and the clinic is done and we're closing down the shop, the government guy who's been busy helping us out, he looks at the church folks who are also helping out, and he's like, yeah, you guys aren't that bad. Thank you for helping us, and thanks for just helping us with this. And the church folks look at the government guys, and they're like, hey, you're not that bad. Thank you for helping. We kind of like you guys. So when tongue out is done, and we, the docs and the nurses, leave, the government folks and the church folks shake hands.
Nice.
And we're on our way, but they become friends, and because of that, the church is invited back to do more service work at the same areas after we leave.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great, because it's a perfect example of that ripple effect. And it's just your organization, you were the impetus for building that relationship, making that bridge, creating that bridge that would not have been there otherwise.
Yeah, just a door opener, right? A door opener
Yeah.
for folks to meet each other and trust each other.
Yeah, and sometimes that's all it takes. It just takes that start. It takes, and that's why we call it a spark moment. It's that initial spark, that initial beginning, and then it can grow from there, and a positive relationship can grow. Well, thank you very much for sharing that. So I do want to touch on something that you're working on now, which is MDDAO, because I know that is a real cutting edge stuff, and it's probably the next phase of a chapter for everything for you. So tell us a little bit about that. Share with our audience more about that.
Absolutely. Very interesting. So MDDAO, what does that stand for? Well, MD stands for medical doctor, healthcare. DAO is an acronym, and it stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization, which is a long-winded set of words. Decentralized Autonomous Organization. It is an organization or an entity that is relatively new over the last few years. It is an entity that lives on the blockchain. It is an entity that that is part of Internet or Web 3.0.
Mm.
If Internet 1.0 is simply sending an email, and Internet 2.0 is simply looking at somebody's website, right, and maybe interacting through their website.
Mm-hmm.
Internet 3.0 or Web 3.0 is actually engaging inside that website, walking around as an avatar, looking around, experiencing, not just looking at a screen, but being inside that world. And that's what Facebook is working on, as as with their new name Meta, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's
the
what
metaverse and everything.
the metaverse, and that's what Omnivia is building through Omnivia's Omniverse engine. That's what Microsoft is working on now, and so MDDAO is, I'm one of the co-founders. We are building the first in the world metaverse for healthcare. For healthcare activities to be on that metaverse. The question is, why are we doing that?
Yeah,
right?
That would have been my question.
Why does it exist? And it exists today to try to solve issues that currently exist in our current healthcare. And we want to integrate health and wellness. We want to address the shortcomings that we see in the current healthcare system. The current healthcare system is designed to address disease, making a diagnosis and a treatment plan. Mm-hmm. It is not designed for wellness and prevention. Our healthcare system, in a 15-minute doctor's visit, that doctor is busy with you, refilling your meds, reviewing your lab results, putting in your referrals, talking about consultants, and addressing your primary concern that you're there. There is no time to address and discuss prevention, to discuss nutrition, to discuss lifestyle changes and things of that sort with that. So, and the other issue that we see in our current healthcare system is that the healthcare system is fragmented.
Yeah.
Treatment and care is made in silos. Like every specialist lives in their own silos, right? There's no good interconnection between the system. Patients are being treated behind high walls, in isolated systems, and in networks that do not speak to one another. Right? You go to the hospital, the doctor has no clue what's going on. In the office, the hospital system and the office system don't necessarily talk to one another.
Yeah.
And then there are turf wars, right, between physicians and non-physician providers. Doctors don't trust chiropractors. Chiropractors don't trust doctors. Naturopathic providers, don't trust, pharma. And pharma don't believe the other stuff is all kooky, right, unless it's gone through clinical trials and things of that sort. The treatment modalities are not integrated. The providers of healthcare are not integrated. Those who write prescriptions don't trust those who do acupuncture, and vice versa, right? Those who prescribe herbal medicine don't trust, pharmaceutical meds, and it just goes back and forth, right? It's a broken system we have. With that. And then there's a lot of distrust because we're all in healthcare tribes. If you're in the Western medicine tribe, you don't necessarily trust the alternative medicine tribe.
Yeah,
right.
Very true.
Or the natural medicine tribe, and vice versa. The other tribe don't trust you either, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a statement on society.
Yeah, and our healthcare system has been designed from the top down. The way our healthcare system is structured is designed from the top down, designed by MBAs, designed by financial people who are focused more on the bottom line than health and wellness, right? Patients are often just the pawns of this game, just being
Yeah,
moved around
unfortunately.
with that. So there's all kinds of barriers today in our healthcare system. Interoperability between systems is a barrier. Distrust among groups of healthcare providers is a barrier. Financial restrictions between payers and networks, right, is a barrier. Lack of data to verify, what works and what doesn't work. Physical boundaries within the walls of, medical offices is a barrier. Turf wars and tons of barriers. And the result of this is that there's healthcare disparity. Minorities don't get the same access to healthcare as those who have money.
Yeah.
Those who live in poor communities don't have the same access to healthcare as so there are haves and have-nots, right, in the United States healthcare. There are those who have access and those who doesn't. And so how does the metaverse even begin to solve this issue? So we are forming a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. And a decentralized autonomous organization compared to a centralized organization, the difference is this. A centralized institution has a board of directors, CEO, CFO, right, the executive leadership. Decisions are made from top down, right? Board vote, we decide this. Executive director, we decide this. Decisions are made from top down. In a DAO, the decisions are made by the members of the DAO. The members of the DAO are basically, owners of the DAO, the membership. Those decisions are made often by majority vote of the members. We want to build healthcare not from the top down. We want to build healthcare from the bottom up, from the patient's perspective. And so the DAO allows you to do that. It's not made by up here down, but by majority vote of the members of that DAO. So in MDDAO, we're actually going to allow, when we're ready to launch, right, within 2-3 months, we're going to allow membership, right, through an NFT. You can purchase a membership that gives you voting rights to build the metaverse for healthcare. You get to build it, right?
You get to build it. You get to make decisions. You get to have to say so.
Exactly. On the metaverse, which is, and the metaverse has, it's just a terminology that actually have always existed in gaming. If you're ever a gamer, World of Warcraft is the metaverse, right? You're running around shooting things. That's inside the metaverse, right? Playing StarCraft, Warcraft, all those games I played, right? Doom. Gamers already know the metaverse because they're running around and doing stuff in the metaverse. We just gave it a name called the metaverse for non-gamers.
And I know it's growing, and I know there'll be lots of, there's people with property and real estate and all sorts of things on the metaverse. So for you to be early on, and like you said, the world's first, medical decentralized autonomous organization. I mean, that will be, it will be the start of changing healthcare, and making it better for people.
Because on the metaverse, there are no physical barriers and walls to obstruct the access of care. On the metaverse, there's no boundaries that limit your care between cities, states, or even countries, right? On the metaverse, right, there's no financial currency barrier. If you're in China or in Vietnam and you want to get care in the US, you don't have to convert your dollar, your currency to US dollars to do all that, because we will have a token that's going to be used for the metaverse, that everyone uses the same token, right? Like a cryptocurrency token. On the metaverse, the inner city and the rural communities have the same access to care as those in big cities. So we take away all those physical barriers on the metaverse, and patients can own their own health data. And if they want to monetize their own health data, they have the right to do that, rather than having their health data monetized by Facebook or monetized by, by centralized organizations.
Yeah, being sold off by all these other entities.
Exactly. So the metaverse solves a whole set of issues that that exists today, and that's our vision. That's our vision. That's where we want to go. I'm not going to say 100% that this is going to happen, but that is what we plan to develop, and it's going to be developed by the members of the DAO, the public and the community, not from the top down.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of people, and I don't know necessarily for people that listen to this podcast, but a lot of people don't have a good understanding of what the metaverse is all about. And seeing that you contrasting the differences in healthcare, that really paints a picture to see what benefits there are for individuals. And I know for members of the iSpark Change community, for our impact heroes that are listening, is they are interested in change, in positive change, and doing things a different way, in evolving and growing and wanting to make the world better. And this is one step in that right direction. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
So I have one final question, which we always ask folks on the podcast. And our goal at iSpark Change, so we have big goals too. And our goal in the next 5 years through our community and through our work is to positively impact 1 billion people. And we're going to do that through our future social media community. And we know we can't do this alone. We know we need the help of people like you, leaders, social impact heroes that are doing good work, creating different organizations and entities like MDDAO that are going to help spur this along and help make the world better. But many people feel, as I once did, that I'm too small. I'm just one person. How can I make a difference? What are my actions going to do to make a difference? So I value your opinion as a social impact hero. So the question I have for you, Dr. Trinh, is what can the world become if everybody starts believing that they can impact the future? If everybody starts taking control of those reins, like you were talking about, and say, hey, I want to have control of my healthcare, or hey, I want to make the world better. What can the world be like if that happens?
Yes, and it doesn't mean you have to fly around the world to do good stuff and things of that sort. It's just a simple question we all ask each other every day. What can I do today? What can I do today to positively make an impact on my neighbors or my patients or my family's life? One step at a time. If we all took one step at a time of what we can do tangibly today to make that positive impact, we will have that ripple effect that you talked about. One action a day, and write it down. Put it on a journal. The one thing I did today was whatever it is, right? Toward the end of the day. The one thing I'm grateful for today is, right? And have a gratefulness journal, a journal of the one activity you did today that made a positive impact. And it changes your mindset. And when your mindset changes, right, the framework of how you look at the world changes, and you realize that you are making an impact every day, just 1% at a time. It doesn't have to be anything major or big. That's my thoughts on it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Trinh, for sharing that, because the beauty in that is in the simplicity. The beauty is in that, one a day, gratitude journaling. Those are things that are near and dear to my heart that I practice every day. And so I encourage our listeners to heed Dr. Trinh's advice and to take that up. So before we go, we know our audience will want to learn more about you and what you're working on. So how can they connect with you? How can they find you?
Yeah, if they want to learn about MDDAO, or they want to get on our whitelist to get more information about how to be a member and things of that sort, just go to mddao.com. Real simple, mddao.com. If they want to follow me on my activities and lectures and different events I do, it's just our website. It's Health Talks OC, which stands for Orange County.com. And that's it, healthtalksoc.com. And they can certainly hang out and see what we're doing and interact with us. Thanks so much, Rick, for the invite today.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, we encourage everybody to go check that out. And Dr. Trin, thank you for taking time today to share your heart and your wisdom and your story with our audience. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Rick. Good seeing you, and take care, okay?
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye now.
All right, Impact Heroes. It's our stories that connect us all, and we loved hearing Dr. Trin's story today. Dr. Dung Trinh, you truly are an iSpark Chain's social impact hero. Remember, Impact Heroes, every positive action can be a spark moment that has a ripple effect that spreads far beyond the initial act. So go out there and spark change. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this episode, then please smash that 5-star rating on iTunes or Spotify and leave a review. We value your comments and we want to hear from you in the community. Thank you for listening. God bless you, and we'll see you next week on the iSpark Change podcast.